On this edition of Let's Talk Cincy.
We are very proud of what we do and how well we train people and how confident people are when they go out to work in the polls. They can be very confident in their training, and they know they're doing a good job, and they know that this is a fair and accurate election.
Protecting your vote. The steps being taken to ensure election integrity. From WLWT, this is the Emmy Award-winning show, Let's Talk Cincy. Presented by Western and Southern Financial Group. Put our financial strength behind you.
Well, you've heard the political ads and the campaign speeches. Now, early voting is underway. Hello, everyone. I'm Curtis Fuller, and welcome to Let's Talk Cincy. For a couple of centuries now, America has been the beacon for fair and free elections across the world. But recently, that notion has come under fire. The calls of rigged elections have grown louder. The last two presidential cycles. Meanwhile, Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose says that's not the case in the Buckeye State. He says both Republicans and Democrats are working hard to ensure every vote is legit.
So it's important for Ohioans to recognize all the work that goes into, well, fulfilling that promise. When we say that it's both easy to vote and hard to cheat, this is how we carry out that promise. And again, you don't have to choose one or the other. Unfortunately, you'll hear some partisan voices from time to time on both sides of the aisle claiming that you have to choose either security or convenience. That's false. You don't have to choose one or the other. We consistently deliver on that promise of making it both easy to vote and hard to cheat. On the hard to cheat part, I want to talk about the security protocols that go into this. As we speak at county boards of elections, there's a process underway called the logic and accuracy test. That logic and accuracy test, really what that means is that a group of technical experts from both parties, a Democratic expert and a Republican expert, will put every voting machine through a full battery of tests. It's called logic and accuracy. It means that these machines will be working as they should, tabulating accurately, that they are secure, that the function of those machines is as it should be. A security seal will be placed on each one of those voting machines, and then of course they're kept under double lock and key at the Board of Elections until they're ready to go out on Election Day. It's important to emphasize with voting machines that voting machines are never connected to the internet. In fact, probably the biggest source of false information out there about election integrity is this phony idea that somehow voting machines can be remotely tampered with. Let me be clear that voting machines in Ohio are not capable of an internet connection. There's no Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, LAN connection, nothing that connects that machine to the outside world. In fact, the only thing a voting machine can connect to is the wall outlet that powers it. And so that's an important thing for people to understand. And of course, we use the electronic machines to tabulate those results on election night. That's one of the reasons why Ohio gives you that rapid result on election night. Ohioans want to go to bed knowing that unofficial result. We stay up late, we brew a pot of coffee. It's almost a 24-hour day for us elections officials, but we get you those results on election night because of electronic tabulation. But we also go back and count the paper 3 weeks later. That's called the post-election audit. So it's important for people to understand. I've had some people say, well, why use machines at all? Why don't we just have paper ballots? They say you can't cheat with paper. Well, that's not true. Chicago in the 1960s showed you that, of course you can cheat with paper. Anytime there's humans involved, there are opportunities for those folks to do the wrong thing. And so that's why we have redundancy and safeguards built into every part of the process. So Ohio doesn't just have electronic tabulation. We don't just have paper tabulation. We've got both operating in parallel. Those electronic results on election night and that paper audit that makes sure that the two match up. And I'm happy to say that during the 5 years I've been in this office, we've routinely had an accuracy rate, in fact, every time had an accuracy rate of 99.9 or 99.98%. Suffice it to say, we run an accurate and honest process. And we also make sure that only citizens are registered to vote. Pretty straightforward thing. It's included in the Ohio Constitution. It's, of course, federal law as well. You've got to be a citizen to participate in our elections. We check that. We don't just take that for granted. We check that that on an ongoing basis. We use data from the Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles as well as from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And it doesn't happen often, but on the rare occasion where we do find that a non-citizen has attempted to become registered to vote, we of course remove them from the rolls and then in some cases even refer them to law enforcement because that is a crime and we take election law enforcement very seriously. That's happened about 600 times this year. That's a good thing that 600 out of 8 million is a small number. So we make sure that we keep our rolls accurate and up to date. And by the way, that's not a static thing that only happens occasionally. It's an ongoing process, and that work is truly done at the local level by each of our county boards of elections. We pride ourselves on the fact that when Ohioans go to bed, they can know and trust that it was an honest result. I always say to our team that we run elections so well in Ohio that even the loser knows they lost.
And just ahead on Let's Talk Cincy, being an informed voter, what a local civil rights organization wants you to know before going to the ballot box. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. The Cincinnati branch of the NAACP is a nonpartisan organization, but the folks over there have been working hard for several months now to educate you before Election Day. I recently sat down with chapter president Joe Mallory. He explained why it's so important to be an informed voter.
When it comes to elections and electing the right representative or policymaker who's going to represent your, viewpoints, I think it's very important that people understand who is in office, what they do, and the policies that they make, how they impact their lives. And that they got to be engaged in this process. If they want to see change, they have to get involved in the process, because that's how you have your voice heard, is through your vote. A lot of times they do these things, they pass these laws, and it's because they're trying to suppress the vote. And people don't think it matters, but if it didn't matter, they wouldn't work so hard to try to stop us from voting. They just passed one of the most restrictive election laws for voting in the state of Ohio just last year. It's House Bill 458, and it's strict photo ID. And people understand it may have been different when you voted in the last presidential. You have to have a photo ID. It has to be a driver's license, a state ID, a military ID, or a passport. Even a passport will work. And they made a provision in there because individuals don't have a photo ID. The BMV will provide free state IDs to those who do not have a driver's license. So if you don't have a license or you don't have a state ID, you can get a free one, but you got to apply through the BMV to get that. When it comes to getting your ID, you got to have other documents, maybe a birth certificate, Social Security card, and all that. So there's different things you need to have that state ID. And some individuals, they can't locate the document. A lot of our seniors, they may not be able to find their documents, but we want to try to educate them so they can get out there, provide them referrals and resources to try to help them get the documents they need, to help them get this free ID that's available, to make sure that they have all the necessary information that's going to make sure that they get a chance to cast their vote.
Ohio's 1st and 2nd congressional districts are in the spotlight. The candidates hoping to represent you in Washington. Let's Talk Cincy. We'll be right back. Welcome back. While the nation is focused on the battle for the White House, there are some important races happening right here in Ohio. That includes races to represent you in Washington. Democrat Sherrod Brown is in a tight contest against Republican Bernie Moreno to keep his Senate seat. Incumbent Democrat Greg Landsman is facing Republican challenger Orlando Sanza in Ohio's 1st congressional district. The district includes Hamilton and Warren counties. The two recently met in a WLWT Commitment 2024 debate. How to keep students safe in schools was just one of the topics the candidates discussed.
You're going to have the police come together with those of us who want common sense gun reform to get these guns out of our neighborhoods and to ensure that as parents, We don't have to worry about it every single day the way we do.
We've got to make sure that we have the ability to intervene and intervene quickly. That's why putting school resources in there, giving schools what they need to address mental health concerns is done quickly. And again, supporting parents in the community. If their children has some sort of a mental health disability, that we provide the resources right here in the community to do that.
Well, another key race is taking place in Ohio's 2nd congressional district. The district includes 16 counties east of Cincinnati, including Claremont, Brown, and Adams. Residents will have a new Congress member in January. That is because incumbent Republican Brad Wenstrup is not running for another term. Democrat Samantha Meadows and Republican Dave Taylor are running to replace him. Cherie Palello sat down with both candidates.
Dave Taylor is a husband, father of 3 daughters, and a successful business owner. He runs a concrete business serving Southwest Ohio. So some might wonder why he would want to get into the sometimes nasty world of politics. He tells me he knew he needed to step up when Congressman Brad Wenstrup stepped out. But there are other factors.
Second factor is, the laundry list of crises, both domestically and internationally, that we're facing now. Whether it's the border or inflation, or whether it's Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan, all those things going sideways in the last couple of years at an alarming rate. But to be honest with you, those 2 things alone probably would not have gotten me out of the life I was living. But the redraw of the district in 2022 made this district an Appalachian district. My family are Appalachian on both sides. Appalachian counties in general have been left behind, marginalized, and underserved. And the opportunity to help them was really the deciding factor.
When it comes to fixing what's broken in Washington, Taylor is focused on the border. It was the platform for his political campaign in the primary when he was an unknown to most voters.
After a lifetime in construction, I know a thing or two about building a wall.
Why is that such a big issue for your campaign specifically?
It's a big issue, number one, for drugs. You're probably aware of the fact that the people in the 2nd district and Appalachia in general were targeted in the opioid epidemic, and every new drug scourge that comes down the pike comes straight to the 2nd district, and it goes back to jobs and opportunity. These people have no opportunity to have a job. They end up on entitlement programs, and between checks they do whatever the newest, cheapest drug that comes down the block is. Well, fentanyl's pouring across the border, and it's not just the drugs. The illegals are coming. Every state's a border state now. We've heard all the horror stories about Springfield and Aurora. Those things are happening in the 2nd district as well.
Taylor wants to defund and dismantle the U.S. Department of Education. He's pro-life, but says he doesn't support a total ban on abortion and believes there are exceptions. But his first priority, if elected, is helping to create jobs. And he says that starts with fixing the broadband problem across Southwest Ohio.
The 2nd district is a broadband desert, and honestly, I think fixing that would be the most transformative short-term policy that could impact the district. We've seen the explosion of the work from home economy. It doesn't exist for people in the 2nd district. You can't attract businesses. The lack of jobs in the 2nd district is terrible. People drive an hour the ones that are lucky enough to have a job are driving 45 minutes to an hour and a half, sometimes more, one way to a job. It's a long trip to get your groceries. It's a long trip to a doctor if you even have one.
We wanted to host a debate between Taylor and his challenger, Samantha Meadows. He declined.
Why didn't you want to debate your opponent?
I'm not opposed to a debate. I just feel like it was the best use of our time in the short run up we have to the campaign. I've met with Samantha several times, and she's a nice lady, and I appreciate her willingness to serve and her service as an EMT. We both want what's best for people in the 2nd district. We have very different ideas about how to achieve those things. I'm not sure a debate would have served much purpose other than to air the things we're going to say in an individual interview anyway, because I'm not bringing her towards me. She's not bringing me towards her.
Taylor is hoping the Republican stronghold in the 2nd District goes red again this November. And for voters who are still unsure, he says this.
This was never our goal. I never set out as a child to say, I want to go to Congress, I want to live in Washington, D.C. I don't. I see problems that aren't being fixed, aren't being addressed for people that affect people I care about.
We wanted to host a debate between Republican candidate Dave Taylor and Democrat Samantha Meadows. Meadows wanted to debate. Taylor did not.
But I do think it's a cowardly way out of any politician that won't debate their opponent.
He was very candid with me. He said it just wouldn't benefit me. I don't feel like I need it. I'm running a strong, good campaign.
Being in a district that has leaned red, because as Democrats, we've lacked putting the attention to the people in Southern Ohio, he feels safe. You know, he's got this sense of, I don't need to debate because I'm going to win this anyway. Doesn't matter what my positions are. I'm going to win this.
Meadows knows she has an uphill battle. The former EMT turned politician only got 25% of the vote in 22 when she took on incumbent U.S. Congressman Brad Winstrup, who held the seat for 6 terms. But she says this is a much different race and a different time.
I was reading in a recent interview, you said, quote, I know that a lot of folks down here are Republicans by anger rather than policy.
Thank you.
What did you mean by that?
I mean that I travel all 15 and a quarter counties. I am a Southern Ohioan, lifelong. And when we had our steel mills and when we had the mines over in Meigs County, Jackson County, we leaned blue because, you know, unionization, which I'm very proud of my union endorsements. And when those things closed down, the Democratic Party left our region and Republicans swept in. They didn't do a whole lot for us. You can check the records, you know. But so people became angry. Here's the way I feel about it. When people are fearful, they get angry. When you're fearful of not having dinner on the table or gas in your cars, you become an angry person. And I'm not saying all Republicans, because I love a true conservative, but when they see that in folks, I think Donald Trump is a perfect example. They exacerbate that anger. And as a Democrat, I'm moving through there to say, you know what? I know how you feel. Been there, done it. I know, I have empathy for your situation. Once I talk to folks, it tamps down that anger, and they say, you know, that's the person that cares about me.
Meadows wants to put more money into public schools, and protecting reproductive rights is a big priority for this mom of 2 grown children. Despite women being able to get an abortion in Ohio before 21 weeks and 6 days, Meadows wants to give women even more power over their bodies.
We're stripping away women's rights. Think about that. Think about freedom. If you are willing to vote to take that away from a woman, I'm telling you, everybody else's freedom down the line, it'll happen eventually. So no, we need safe access to abortion, and I am very lenient with the laws on that.
And the way it stands now, then, still not good enough in your opinion?
Not good enough in my opinion, and it needs protected federally. It needs to be codified into law.
Both Meadows and Taylor want to close our borders, but they do it different ways and for different reasons.
I get very upset when it's election time and we hear border and we hear fentanyl. And those folks use those as talking points, as hot topics. I don't think that they have any interpersonal stake or relationship in it. And being a young EMT in the mid-90s when the pill mills opened in Southern Ohio, I was on the front lines. I remember my first OxyContin overdose.
So with less than 2 months to go until Election Day, this long-standing Democrat is hoping to win over Southwest Ohio, including Republicans.
Look at the person, not the party, you know, and split that ticket. I don't want anybody changing their party affiliation. You know, I have a deep respect for conservatives, and I want them to know this as well. You know, if I have a barbecue, I'm going to invite you. I want your vote. I want you to be a part of what's happening here. I think your party has fallen out of order. I think the MAGA movement is not the Ronald Reagan era Republicans that I know. And so, you know, if you can't vote for me, don't vote against me.
Up next, a look at the Hamilton County Commission races when Let's Talk Cincy returns. Welcome back. We are watching two key races in Hamilton County. 2 of 3 seats on the county commission are up for grabs. Incumbent Democrat Alicia Reese is being challenged by Republican Jonathan Pearson. The other race pits incumbent Democrat Denise Driehaus against Republican Adam Kaler. John London joins us now with profiles of both races.
Driehaus has politics in her DNA. She started lit dropping for her dad as a child. Kaler ran unsuccessfully as a first-time State House candidate 2 years ago. Now he's set his sights on the county commission.
He's driving his truck all over the place to try to get his name out there. And as he talks to folks, I asked what he hears back, what's on their minds.
Crime. Crime's a big one for people.
Republican Adam Kaler says data showing crime going down can be misleading.
A lot of crime goes unreported. I come from a bad neighborhood. Most people don't call the police.
Democrat Denise Driehaus emphasizes the cultural shift she sees in the county, where the goal is to have all segments of the community thriving, not just some.
I hear a lot about housing, and the need for affordable housing in the community. I hear about youth mental health. Kids are really struggling right now, and we see that playing out with some of the activity of the youth, in the city.
If there's one area of agreement between the two, it's selling the Onsen-Depke building and relocating many county departments to the Mercy Health building in Bond Hill, where there is ample free parking.
Republican Jonathan Pearson understands the very steep uphill climb he faces. Alicia Reese is known, former vice mayor of the city, one-time Ohio House representative, and elected comfortably to the Hamilton County Commission 4 years ago.
Alicia Reese is betting voters will want to keep her on the county commission. In fact, she says their best bet to get a new lease with the Bengals is to keep the commission in Democratic hands.
Yeah, let me tell you, prior commissioners that were on the commission, all 3 Republicans, they put together the worst deal as it relates to the taxpayers in history.
Jonathan Pearson, her Republican challenger, raises questions such as how wisely is the county spending taxpayer money, pointing out Hilltop Concrete's relocating to make more room for the Bengals.
That was real money coming into the county that we just lost, and now we got to say, oh, we need some extra money to help pay for this. We had extra money.
Pearson believes taxes are too high, that the county needs to do more to reduce them, which is Reese's position as well. Transparency, the word she frequently uses.
Well, you can find everything you need to know before casting your ballot with our 2024 election guide. Just use your smartphone to scan this QR code to find information about local races, the candidates, and what you need to bring to the polls. Well, that does it for the program today. I'll see you next time for another edition of Let's Talk Cincy. Thanks for joining us. Have a good day and a better day tomorrow.